Good evening, everyone. I will stop doing my comedy routine and convene our board meeting. Karen, have we got attendance? Yeah? Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve this? Oh, actually, a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
I need to make an amendment or a slight change to the agenda. So what I would like to do is in item 11C, I would like to revise letter C to a vote for closed session on September 8th in lieu of the regular
August.
meeting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in lieu of the regular August.
In lieu of the regular August meeting. Thank you, Eli. Can I have a motion for that revision to the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion on that change? All right, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, the amendment passes. That takes us back to approving the agenda in its entirety. Any other further discussion of the agenda?
Small thing, but
Yes.
as I missed part of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, Trustee Kleinman has offered to
give us the
provide
update?
update on that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. We will have Trustee Kleinman give us the Budget and Finance Committee update. Terrific. All right, if there's no further discussion, we will vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? None. All right, agenda is approved. That moves us to the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Dharma. Any discussion of the consent agenda? All right, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Great. That moves us right on to citizens' comments. Have we citizens' comments? I suspect we do.
We do. We have two that are present. The first one is Helena. Would you like to come up?
Hello, Helena. Thanks for coming to talk to us. You pull the microphone down too so we can hear you.
My name is Helena Kleinier. I think that the library should have huge books of memes that you can borrow. That way, if you want to see something really funny, you can borrow it if it is on the shelf and look through the memes. I think they should be grouped into categories. Silly cat memes, funny and accurate diagrams, funny and name charts, like non-robins being robins, stink squirrel, aka stink squirrel, aka skunk. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the next one is Renska.
Renska. You have to pull the microphone down too. There you go. Oh, it sprung back. I'm so sorry. Perfect.
My name is Renska Kleinier. My favorite thing about the library is that it's very quiet. If you want to read a book there, and the books there are just right for me to read. Not too hard and not too easy, just right. When I go to the library, it just feels like I want to get every book that there is in the library. There are
Thank you so much. I have to tell you, the feeling of wanting to read all the books in the library has not gone away from me for my whole life. All right, what else have we got?
So in addition to some 50, 60, 70 odd comments that you have received in your packet, I'm going to read 10 that were selected from that set of comments. So these are in addition to the ones that appear.
Great.
Okay. This comment is from Alyssa Abate, and these are all comments that were received since just in the past week. Thank you so much for your policy that erases past fines of library members. I hadn't gone to the library in years because I had $30 in fines on my account that I didn't have the extra money for. When I was at the Ann Arbor Summer Festival this summer and someone from the AADL tent told me that the fines were cleared for everyone, I was so excited. I felt like I was missing out on something all of these years that I haven't been going. I went for the first time this week, and I'm now finishing the first book I've read for pleasure in years. Thank you. All right, our next comment is from Nikki Schultz. I love AADL. I'm thrilled to see a variety of indoor and outdoor in-person activities for kids this summer and the reasonably timed return of the paper calendar. Your constant innovation and iteration in programming is visible and impactful to me and my family. Thank you, Nikki Schultz. Our next comment is from Crystal and Lisa Johnson. Crystal and Lisa announced the branch scramble to you, AADL board. We give you a T from Traverwood, an H from West Branch, an A from Traverwood, a double for the north side because we extend an extra gratitude to the librarians there, N from the downtown library, a K from Mallett's Creek, and an S from Pittsfield. Thank you for facilitating an avenue for a wide range of people, offering one of the safest and enriching gigs in town. We especially call out to the Trenton and great native plant work at Traverwood. The new trees there, the rain garden and foliage is looking great. If you have not done so recently, we urge you to drive by or look out the window and see what's under the Traverwood tree. Lisa Johnson. Here's a comment from Susan Morville. I love that you don't need an active library card to play the summer game. Sadly, we moved out of Ann Arbor, but I still play the summer game every summer. I even plan my return trips to A2 during the summer so I can collect lawn and library codes. Thanks for being an amazing library. Here's a comment from Greg Matthews. Good evening, trustees. I can't attend this meeting in real time because I have two little kids that I have to put to bed. Thank you for making it accessible for people like me to comment in the meeting without attending in person. And on behalf of those two little kids and myself, thank you also for whatever it is that you do to make this library system so unbelievably awesome. The summer game has been fantastic for our family, but we love AADL year-round. Shout out to the library staff. Every single library staff member we have ever encountered has been the best combination of warm and professional. Please forgive the gushy comment, but we love you, AADL. Greg Matthews, lucky to be an Ann Arbor resident. Here's a comment from the South family. I wanted to publicly thank the board for developing and managing such an incredible library for our community. I'm constantly in awe of the many options available outside of just books. The puzzles and games added in the past couple years have been a favorite addition for our family. And of course, it goes without saying that the summer game can't be beat. We love playing tourist in our own city, as well as having excuses to visit old favorite places around town. Thank you for providing different adventures and wonderful experiences for us. Next up is a comment about the summer game map. Dear Library Board, I really love my library and all of the materials and resources that it has. I really like the summer game because I get to go around having fun, finding home codes and earning badges. However, the heat map of home codes is not very helpful, and I think it would be more helpful if you could switch back to the pinpoints you used last year. But overall, I really love my library. C.D. Mills, age 9. Next comment is from Shannon Hughes Hautamaki. Hello, trustees. First, a thank you to all your wonderful staff for the enthusiastic return of in-person events this summer. Almost every day we look at the calendar for things to do with our kids and are never disappointed. We've obviously had a lot of fun playing the summer game. Our children, for better or worse, treat the libraries as true second spaces and feel very comfortable expressing themselves, as I'm sure many have seen. Although our family's preferences are definitely for in-person events, I cannot say enough about the continuation and even expansion of services for the community during the worst of the pandemic. The recorded events and story times on YouTube are a fabulous resource, and the Saturday show episodes especially get rewatched many times in our house. What a gift to have these so accessible day or night, no matter what personal or public health conditions are guiding each family's decisions about what to do. Additionally, I'm very excited to hear more about potential designs for the downtown branch. This is our home branch and will continue to be as our kids get older, with them gaining independence to bus or bike downtown. The downtown branch's location is so ideal, I hope future plans consider adding height to the building and housing for more community members. Living above a library, what an amazing prospect, what an amazing prospect. Thanks again for serving as trustees. Warmly, Shannon, Brett, Graham, and Ian Hautamaki. Two more here. Dear AADL trustees, while I've never been a resident of Ann Arbor, I did work in the city for a time conveniently when the modern summer game was coming along. I was immediately hooked and have tried to participate each year since. I've always been a big book reader, but the summer game has allowed me to participate in a new way to learn some random facts. I want to thank you for this innovative opportunity to get involved in the public library system, specifically with a summer reading program that has really gone above and beyond what most libraries can offer. I feel that this program will set a new standard for public library services, and I send you my heartfelt thanks for all the hard work you do each and every year. And finally, I have a ode to the summer game from Tammy Cutter with instructions to be read at the board meeting with enthusiasm and gusto. So here we go. Ode to the summer game. We wait all year for June to come to play the game that's second to none. Oh, summer game, you wily minx, you tease us so and make us think. We search for clues both near and far, sometimes by foot, sometimes by car. And don't forget the special events where sometimes codes can be found in tents. Crosswords and cryptids and chickens, oh my, hunting for codes sure does make the time fly. And the talent that's displayed from the staff art that's made, and the tiny tableau in each Delaney art box to the towering structures made with Lego toy blocks. So thank you one and thank you all for thinking up codes every winter, spring, and fall, so we could have fun all summer through and even learn a thing or two. With sincere gratitude, Tamara Cutter. And that's it for citizen comments.
Very nice.
Can we clap for the citizens?
Did y'all get your code from the podium?
Did you get it?
Okay, good. Thanks for coming. All right, I think that concludes citizen comments.
Did you wish to make a comment? Please, go right ahead.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Matthew Moon. I've been Ann Arbor resident for like 14 years. I like to say y'all doing a fantastic job as Board of Trustees for the library. I like all the materials you have for the patrons. I've been a longtime patron of Ann Arbor Library. And the summer games are really terrific. It's my second year really playing.
Awesome.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Get
Did you
your
get the code? All right. Thanks very much.
Take care. All right. Well, we always enjoy hearing citizens' comments this time of year and hearing how people are using the library and what they think about it and the summer game and on and on and on. Now on to financial business, financial reports. Eli.
Okay, so financial report begins on page 30. We are in the midst of a transition to a new accounting system. It's going pretty well. We still have a few things that we're working out, but we were able to get the financials completed for last year on the old accounting system. And just to hit on a couple highlights here. So you can see that the cash, the end of cash on hand, end of year, was 3.1 million. So that's like the cash in addition to the investments. And we'll see on the next page how that all adds up together into our fund balance. Notable is that we've received $18 million in tax revenue. That's 101.1% of what we budgeted. Generally, that runs over because of our somewhat conservative assessments of the captures. It's very difficult to determine exactly how much is captured from the various TIFs that affect us in brownfields. So we use a formula to estimate that, and we always want to be under as opposed to over. So we are very pleasantly surprised to have 101.1% of our expected tax revenue. And our fund balance increased to 5.7 million at the end of the fiscal year. On the next page, Year-to-date revenues, that means at the end of the last fiscal year, we finished the year with a surplus of $1.5 million. So that was with our current revenues of 100.2% of the approved budget, and our current expenses 91% of the approved budget. And our actual cash receipts were right at what we expected there. Because of what happened with the bond market this year, our investments vastly underperformed, as is to be expected when you're heavily invested in bonds. And it's not because you actually have to pay that money back. It's because when you are booking the value of the bonds into your books, you have to consider the market value of the bonds. And when inflation is increasing, it decreases the market value of your existing bonds. So the way that gets accounted for is by decrease in the value of your bonds on your books. And that's why those numbers, which we'll look at in just a moment, are so confusing in the revenue side. On page 32, if you look at the total assets line, that really tells us where the fund balance comes from. We have $5.9 million in the general fund. The capital fund has $2.2 million in it. Our restricted grant fund is $540,000. Those three lines going across add up to our fund balance of $8.7 million, which includes the $2.2 million. That's not our unrestricted fund balance, because the $2.2 million in the capital fund is restricted to be spent on capital, and the $540,000 is restricted grant money. If you look at the on page 33, the statement of revenues and expenditures, looking down on the revenue side, which is the top, looking down the column, you can see that we wound up, again, $200,000 over budget in our revenues. That's $200,000 more than we were expecting from property taxes. We also collected $77,000 more than we were expecting from state penal fines. That is not library fines, that's parking tickets and fines that the state police charge. That is just basically, that number comes solely from what is collected in our area. So that can be anything over the course of the year, and this year was more than expected. Then you can see the interest income, which is in this case, a negative $257,000. Again, that doesn't actually come out of our money, but because the decrease in the market value of our bonds, this is how that hits our books, is through the revenue side of our annual budget. You can see we took in a little bit less than we were expecting for grants and memorials, but substantially more than we were expecting for library fines and fees, mostly as we were starting to get caught up on overdue notices for lost items. Again, we no longer charge any overdue fees, but we do bill for materials when they are 45 days overdue, and a lot of things that had been out since the beginning of the pandemic have now either returned or been paid for. The next line down is non-resident fees. We can see we did a lot more than that than expected, about $10,000 more than expected. Rental revenue is right on the nose, $462. That's because that solely comes from our subtenant Sweetwater's at Westgate. So it's a very predictable number. And then finally, the MEPSers pass through. We budgeted for $100,000. That is money that comes from the state that then we pay back to the state. Don't ask. It's just a weird thing about the way that the state pension system works. They pay us some money, we pay it back to them, then we pay more money on top of that. But you can see that the MEPSers pass-through actual of $74,000 matches up to the MEPSers pass-through expense line of $74,000. So the good news is every single line finished the year under budget. So we did not go under budget in any lines this year. We did not go over budget, sorry, on any lines this year. We were able to get every line finished under budget. So that is great. The auditors will like to see that. And then that you can see then our total revenue under expenditures, $1.5 million, which leaves us with a undesignated fund balance at the end of the year of $5.7 million. Any questions about the financial report? Okay.
Where's the,
sorry.
where is that like $200,000 discrepancy? The 5.9 in the general fund from page 32 in terms of total assets. Is it that 226 from other?
I think what that probably is encumbrances or prepaids. No,
because we end up with 5.784 in the fund balance.
I think it's just because the 5 points, that's the fund balance at the end of the year, and that doesn't take into effect the governmental funds.
Got it.
So, yeah, it's more like over the course of the year, that's where it ended up. So that number isn't supposed to balance to that total assets number.
Got it.
They're just close enough that it looks like they should.
Yeah.
Because what matches up there is, well, the governmental fund sheet doesn't match to what you have on the income and expenditures.
Yeah.
It's more like the bank account, and this is the check register. Did it answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions about the financials? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to committee reports, we have not had an executive committee meeting, therefore there is no report. And Trustee Kleinman will update us on Budget and Finance Committee.
Yeah, so the most recent Budget and Finance Committee meeting, we had an opportunity to meet with representatives from Bank of Ann Arbor, from our bank, who explained to us basically how the bond market is working right now and why it's making it look like we've lost a lot of money even though we haven't, which I can try to explain, but it's basically when inflation goes up, the value of bonds goes down because the money does less, basically. But because we're not actually trying to sell them now, we're not actually losing any money. It's just how it has to be accounted. And the other thing is that we have to invest in bonds. Maybe everyone already knows this because we're a public body, and so we can't speculate in the stock market. So bonds are it. Our bonds we get very highly rated bonds. They're very reliable investments, and so we're doing fine, even though the balance sheet looks scary. I think that basically covers it.
Any questions? Great, thank you. And that moves us on to the library report. Eli?
Okay, so this report is still in the format that we had been doing. Thank you all for the discussion last time. We will be bringing you a new and improved approach to the library report when we meet again in September. So I'm going to just touch on a couple of things here quickly because we have a lot of other things on the agenda tonight. Here's our stat of the month, door count. You can see A2CAF on there, clear as day. A very busy day at the library. We had almost 1,800 people through the downtown library. That makes it by far the busiest day at the downtown library since March of 2020, by far. So we were delighted to see that. Great attendance for A2CAF. Even though it was a much smaller event than normal, we had a lot of people very happy to see that happening. As a point of comparison, so you can see here, we had that spike up to 1,800, but very routinely, Westgate, the blue line, is around 1,200. Downtown, the red line is around 1,000, and the branches are all basically between like 300 and 600. If we compare that to 2019, the same days on the calendar, just to give that as a comparison, we were routinely around 1,600 to 2,000 on a normal day. So the Westgate and downtown are about at 2/3 of the door count from 2019, but the branches are a lot closer. You can see the branches, as opposed to being like 600 to 800, or like 500 to 900. So the branch business has come back pretty strongly. We're still having a lot less people come through the downtown library and the Westgate location. A lot of that is we're just restarting programming. And I also think that it's fair to say we probably will never do as much programming again as we were doing at that point, because a lot of days we were cannibalizing our own audiences, because we were just doing a lot of things on the same days. And in some cases, we could say that we had too many programs on the calendar in 2018 and 2019. So I expect that our numbers for attendance will continue to rise, but that we may not ever have the same number of events as we did pre-pandemic. Summer game lawn and library signs are going great.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Can you just remind me how we do the door count?
So there are little devices that are above each entry, and they basically track heat blobs, and they track if they're going in or out.
Okay.
So we count the number of people that came into the library at each door, and then they're totaled up across. It's a system called TrafSys that is used by retail and libraries and museums. Thank you, great question. We used to have really bad data about that, and we invested in this new system 2015, 2016, and it does a really great job. All right, summer game lawn and library signs are going great. There's 608 lawn signs out there in the community right now, 129 code cards spread across the signs at 5 branches. Here's the infamous heat map. Shows you where all the codes are around town roughly. I will say that we are having a much better experience this year in terms of not having a lot of conflicts between code hunters and homeowners or residents. So that's been going better, but we are hearing, as you heard in one of the comments, that it is a little bit harder to find where the signs are, particularly with impatient offspring in tow. So one thing that we are likely to do once the code creation window ends on the 15th is tighten up the parameters of this map a little bit, so it makes it a little bit more clear where all the codes actually are. We still don't want to encourage people to try to get them all. That's what leads to some of the behavior issues that we've had in the past. So, but we will make it a little bit easier to find them once they've all been made. The other thing that's just terrific, I just pulled this data today, I was so delighted to see it. We have set a new high for summer game players. Nice. And this is as of July 25th of each year. You can see going all the way back to 2015, we were on a real steady path. Then as you would expect, 2020 and 2021 were less than we had had previously. But here in 2022, we've already surpassed our 2019 number of active players for the summer game. So we are delighted to see that this very successful programming is right back on track and growing as if the pandemic never happened. To that point, we've got the Summer Game Spectacular on July 30th. That's this Saturday at Veterans Park from 1 to 4 p.m. There will be lots of codes. There will be trapeze artists. There will be Balkan Band, Rita Musique, all kinds of fun things going on, face painting, food trucks, all kinds of delightful fun. So please join us at Vets Park from 1 to 4 p.m. this Saturday. One thing that we've got new in the Summer Game shop this year is Summer Game prize books. We commissioned these covers to be done by local artists. We had a call for artists and then selected some. And here are the 4 books that you can purchase. We had these printed. They'll be available in mid-August. We have The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. We have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We have The Souls of Black Folk by W.B. Du Bois. And we have Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. And those have all been done by local artists, and they did absolutely fantastic versions of these. We're so excited to get these out into the community. And with Fifth Avenue Press, we've been learning a lot about how to do these things. So it was a good opportunity for us to print some of our own books and answer some of the questions that we've had, that we've only helped our authors navigate. Also, I gave a tip about this a few weeks ago, but it is now possible to search the LDS Church's vast collection of genealogical information. Family Search is what that's called. That's now available at all AADL libraries. You can just walk in. There's a shortcut right there on the desktop. It's very easy to use. It's only available at the library. You can access it from our Wi-Fi if you know what website to go to. But we've put that link right on all of our machines. And there's a huge collection of materials. It is free. There's no cost to the library. But there was a sign-up process that took some time to navigate. Then one of my very favorite events, the 17th Annual Lego Contest, coming up Sunday, August 7th at Kensington Hotel out by Briarwood. We will have prizes in 6 age groups and 9 special categories, and please join us for that wonderful event. Here's some highlights from social media. This is from one of our partners, 7 Cylinder Studio, Donald Harrison. They're in the midst of producing a Jones School documentary for us, and they just recently interviewed Joetta Mile, who was a director, who was the principal of Huron for many years, and has been around in the town for a long time and has a lot of great historical information. So that is continuing to be produced, and that should hopefully be releasing next year. Some more highlights from social media. Here's a fan from our Drawing for Kids events that we do in partnership with the Ann Arbor Arts Center. These are currently in person once a month and online once a month, so we're doing some of each of those. They're having a great time with those. And then that reminded me, I threw in one of my pictures. I still get copied on people sending in their summer game cards. And usually it's just a picture of the card, but sometimes you get to see the kid as well. And this is just one of my favorite pictures that has been sent in, especially just because of how hard you could see he worked to write down all the titles on his book. So I just wanted to share that wonderful photo that landed in my inbox. A few more things from social media. Today we checked off our 4th library. Downtown is home. Westgate and Pittsfield were Friday. Only Mallett's Creek left to visit, with some of the kids walking along the wall there at Traverwood. And then here's some adults playing the summer game. We're going on an adventure. Actually, we're looking for codes for the AADL summer game, but shut up, that is totally an adventure. I could not agree more. And here's someone, when you go to a fancy mansion in South Bend and your AADL swag clashes in just the right way, noticing some resemblance between her AADL summer game possum pouch and some ceramic vase there. I think this is the Studebaker Mansion, Tippecanoe Place, but I'm not entirely sure. And then just a few more comments. Here's Michelle Danilovitz, who is she works with the children with visual impairments at WISD. And she said, we worked with our fantastic local library ADL to make sure the summer game's accessible for the blind and visually impaired, working on embossing the summer scavenger hunt codes and making the alt text on images more screen reader friendly. Libraries rock. And you can now ask at any of the desks at our locations and receive a copy of all the building codes in Braille. So we had a question from a player who was interested in that. We got those set, And there's actually a code on those that only appears on those sheets, only for those players. And then another comment of someone who said, I never realized how ADA uncompliant most of Ann Arbor is until I had to push a baby in a stroller around. And then they add, shout out to the AADL for being the real MVP of ADA compliance. And boy, do we like to see that, because we put a lot of time and effort into trying to do that as best we can. Just a few more comments from across the desk. Patron wanted to compliment whoever came up with the SG and building codes, as the puns are really good. She particularly liked diamond in the trough. That's from our crack summer game punsters. Patron wanted to let the team know that she loves the seed packet art and the Andy Pizza summer game artwork. That's the artist this year, Andy J. Pizza. She appreciates all the fun. And a visitor was very impressed with our world language section and mentioned how much more we had than their home library. And finally, Patron let me know when she was checking out that this is the best library system in the world. My daughter lives in Chicago, and she says, Mom, you don't know, Ann Arbor Library is so good. And that's our report for this week, for this month.
Woo. Summer game all the time. All right. That moves us into new business, and I'm wondering,
Let me set this up.
yeah, why don't you?
Okay. So first item on our agenda today is last year in the fall of 2021, we were approached by the Lawrence Technological University Architecture Department to ask if the downtown library could be a project for their students as a concept. And I saw many of the proposals when they were done with their work down at the end of April. And there are some really cool ideas for an exciting standalone downtown library here. And so I asked them if they wouldn't like to come and present some of the many projects that we saw to the Board of Trustees. So with that, I would like to introduce Martin and Kalina, and they're going to set the stage a little bit and introduce our first presenter tonight. I think we have some on Zoom and some in person. Is that correct?
We lost a couple to Zoom.
Okay.
For convenience with summer jobs and everything else.
Sure.
But we have one here, and then we can be here to field questions as well.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Microphone, just so we can capture for the stream.
Yes,
Thank
of
you.
course. First of all, Eli, thanks. It's been great working with you this year. And we appreciate your participation and your response to the students. Or you, of course, are an especially qualified critic for their work, which we didn't know when we first contacted you. So the students you're going to meet tonight, you'll see, I think, 4 or 5 projects. We'll see. We had Professor Quinn and I had a little over 20 students. We wrote a program for a downtown library. When I worked in practice in Ann Arbor, I worked on a lot of libraries, so it's always been a favorite project of mine. We agreed that it'd be an appropriate project for this particular course, which is the most demanding design course in the curriculum. The students are seniors, and they are required to prepare drawings, renderings, images that show just about every aspect of an architectural project. That includes not just the renderings of the inside floor plans, but heating, ventilating, air conditioning systems, structural systems. We now have software that does an incredibly good job at going over environmental systems and calculations. You will not, fortunately for you, will not see every bit of work that we saw, that Eli saw, and you won't see all the students, but you will see a bit of work that you could not do unless you did all the comprehensive work to prepare in the background. We've asked the students to concentrate on 2 things tonight, things that we think will be of most interest to the trustees and the library going forward, and they would be 2 things: patron experience, and along with that, some environmental concerns. Kalina, do you want to say something?
The one thing that I think, just based on some of the comments that you've talked about tonight, we sculpted the program so it's just library. There's no additional extra pieces except for the cafe piece, which you guys have found to be kind of really great. The other addition that was a public aspect was either a music venue or an art gallery space. And so thinking about the location of that, their presentations, kind of given the length and time, might not necessarily cover those spaces, but that's the complexity that they were looking at, and their tour here, I think, gave them a lot of things to consider, just in terms of entry and exit and kind of security and all of those things that go into thinking about a truly public building and space. And so I hope you enjoy them. And what's the lowdown? Like, the presentation should be about 5 minutes, and then you guys can ask a few questions, comments if you want. And then feel free to ask questions at the end as well. You'll see they kind of wide-ranging responses, which is actually the exciting part for us as instructors, to sort of see what a kind of nugget or a seed of a given grows into something pretty different and pretty amazing for each student.
Good. So,
Devin is up first, and I think he is on Zoom.
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
I can
yes,
hear
Devin,
you.
hi. Devin Durr, one of our students.
Yes.
Are you ready to present?
I am. Should I share my screen?
Yes.
Yes, please.
All right.
And you have the Google Slides pulled up? Okay, perfect. And
I
that'll
sure
make
do.
it easier for advancing and whatnot. Lovely.
Oh,
Take it away,
cool.
Devin.
Okay. So, oops, what's going on here? Okay, cool. So this is my interpretation of the Ann Arbor District Library Downtown Branch redesign, or I guess completely new design. So a lot of the stuff that I was focusing on was based on the user experience and how different people range in introverted or extroverted personality types, and how there's also an in-between. And I've taken a lot of interiors courses while I was at LTU, and we focused on these things quite a bit. So one of the primary things I was looking at is how can a design accommodate the variety of users that occupies it. And then the second thing that we've studied in a lot of our courses is a third place, which is something that is not work and it is not home. It's something that's truly public. So I wanted to explore how that might be used. And it's more important now than ever after COVID has hit, because you see people working remotely, and it's blurred the lines between home. It's blurred the lines between all the different places, like first, second, and third. So I've started to combine the work environment with the third place instead of the work environment with the home place as it was during COVID. Then give me 1 second. My Zoom is blocking my other part of the screen. Cool. And then also, how can ecology play a role in the design? So there's many positive impacts that can come from ecologically focused design. You've probably heard of terms such as biophilia. And so I tried to incorporate things like that into the design also to help enhance the experience for the users. So this is taking a look at all of the 4 floors of my design and how I have separated like exclusively extroverted spaces or exclusively introverted, or where it kind of blurs in between for those that can go either way depending on the task at hand. So the more extroverted spaces are those that don't necessarily have like clear cutoff walls, or it's very much open, and it tends to be more loud spaces. There is probably more traffic happening. So that type of space is for people who need like a buzzing environment in order to read, focus, work, do whatever they are coming to the library to do. And then the introverted spaces are for people who need quiet. So maybe they're attending a meeting, online meeting, or they just need quiet in order to work. And then an interesting thing that you might start to see on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors is the white space here is the stacks. And each of the green squares is actually a tiny little introverted cube, basically, where the floor is sunk down and there's steps, and in some cases there might be ramps, so that it's like its own little room inside the stacks, and it's one of the most quiet and like intimate spaces in the library. So taking a look at how I've planned to blend the working third space, or the work environment, and the third place, and how I'm calling it the working third place. I'm not going to go through all the text that I have written because we have limited time here. This is taking a look at the ecological design in action. I have abstracted what types of forests or types of spatial experiences you might have in nature and tried to incorporate them into the design. So the ones that captured my attention most were lofty, area exposed places, compressed, dense, and concealed. And another one that's kind of interesting that happens during those introverted sunken down spaces is perched, motion, and refuge. So it's kind of mimicking like being on a cliff edge where the view is unobstructed and you're kind of sunken down and you've got a little bit of coverage above. And then taking a look at some of the renders, this is the cafe space. And this space is on my introvert extrovert map more into the extroverted range. It's probably on the lower end of the extroverted range, but it definitely is more of a buzzy environment. And then this is an example of one of those introverted reading nooks where it's sunken down and it's really quiet. And this is the place you would want to go to read quietly and be alone. And then there's also some exterior space that's being used to help along with the ecology idea that I have there. It's hosting a bunch of variety of Michigan native plants to attract Michigan native species such as monarchs and all the other beautiful life forms that we have in our ecosystems. The entrance lobby is definitely one of the more extroverted spaces because it is the primary, well, the only entrance into the library. So there's going to be a constant and steady flow of traffic here. Yet there are places for people to sit down and work, especially if they don't plan to be there long term and they're not trying to find themselves lost in the library, but they can just come and work and meet people and then go on and do other things. So it can become a third place or a meeting space in that way too. And then also for the atrium / presentation media space, when we came to visit the media space at the current library, it seemed like it was kind of pushed off into the corner. So I tried to incorporate it more centrally so that it was something that people could see and not necessarily become a part of, but could still observe. I did like in the current library how there were kind of these lofty, can you see my cursor? Cool. I liked how there were these lofted areas so that you could observe as you were walking through. And another interesting thing to note in this perspective is that this sort of bridge or catwalk happening here is actually a ADA compliant ramp bridging the working study spaces, which is this right-hand side, and the stacks and reading spaces, which is the left-hand side. So there are ADA accessible ramps from either side, but there is an elevation shift, which adds interest. This is an interior garden space, and it's probably one of the more extroverted, introverted spaces, if that makes sense. It's more loud, and it is in the lobby. So it is exposed to a lot more, but it is still secluded and it feels like enclosed, even though it's not. And it allows people to do that sort of work. And then this is an example of the study that I was talking about that was on the right-hand side of the image before, where there are dedicated, closed off, like not sound canceling, but sound reduction rooms with glass doors so you can still see in for safety reasons. And then on the exact opposite of those glass doors is the more extroverted studied spaces too. And I think, oh, okay. And then my last image is the other side of the garden space. It's a little meeting space there. And it's also featuring these solar diffusers, which are composed of Voronoi cells, which is another biophilic element. And its Voronoi cells appear everywhere in nature. They're in bubble clusters and all kinds of things. So this was another addition to help promote the idea of ecology. And I think that was my last slide. Are there any questions I can answer now, or are we going to keep moving on?
On the board, have any questions?
Well, I just want to applaud first.
Yes.
I have a question. I thought that the consideration of people's extroversion or introversion was very cool for us to think about. And I wondered if that was part of the assignment or the program, or that's something that you developed on your own. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking to whenever we have a remote guest.
Yeah, are you guys able to see my screen or my face at all if I turn on my camera, or is it just my voice? Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. You guys see? Oh,
Hi.
so sorry. Cool. Yeah. So I don't remember that being a part of the curriculum or the project, but it has been in the past. I know for our previous studio, ID5, Integrated Design 5, it was. So I think it was still relevant in a lot of our minds, but I don't think it was an official part of the project.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool, thank you.
I just have a comment. I noticed that the light in the renderings, and I really just appreciated the way that it seemed like you really considered how the light was going to be coming in, and there was a lot of beautiful light coming into all of those different spaces at different times of day.
Yes, and one thing I did forget to mention with the design too is that that sunlight diffuser that you saw on the side of the building was also present in the atrium so that it won't damage the books either, because I know that books are susceptible to sunlight. So there was consideration for that too, and I just forgot to mention. So thank you for reminding me.
Were you able to find a way to have a ramp into every one of those sunken areas? Because those are really cool, but it's also challenging for there to be any parts of a public library that aren't universally accessible.
Yes, that's true. And that is one thing that I wish I had more time to explore, but I wasn't able to. A lot of the ones that were inside of or interior of the stacks, they are not ramped down. And I wish that I had more time to explore how they could be, because I think that they could be. There is definitely ways to do that, because part of my design also was raised floor plenums. So the floor was flexible. It's not at a solid level where you can't move it. You can go up and down as long as it's avoiding the HVAC systems and the energy systems below.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Nice job.
Thank you.
It's excellent.
Thanks.
Okay, who's next?
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Here, I'll put on a mask for you guys. Hello? Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. So the topics that I wanted to go over for my project was the ideas of botany and well-being, daylighting circulation, and the pedestrian engagement for the design that I was working on this semester. With the response being an atrium, the program organization, and an arcade entry for the building. For me, it was important to, as a main driver, After the pandemic, the importance of our mental health and well-being has come to light with the increase of remote schooling and working culture, making us self-aware in how we design these spaces, which includes our relationships with plants and nature, which shows that many research studies show that the inclusion of botany in our indoor environments has shown to increase creativity, focus, and take into consideration and improve morale in school and in the workplace. This brings an understanding that a library should take this into consideration to support the growing needs for online learning and work. So living walls can bring the outdoors indoors. And this is a low maintenance, self-sustaining system. And it also is an eco-friendly system that brings fresh air into a building. It provides the idea of bringing the outside inside, and if designed under the right conditions, can really impact a building, and I hope a library as well. Hope they work, okay. And so the idea of a living atrium was born, which as an atrium, it satisfies all these conditions needed for an efficient system, which the whole building is designed to respond to. This includes the locations of study, seating, and reading rooms, and the relationships of the wall and the distribution of light. Okay, cool. This distribution includes the consistency
in use between of all the programs used in this 5-level building, with the library stacks and public spaces primarily north and on top of each other, and the other more study, administration, seating, and more private areas being toward the wall, and also its circulation as well, and it faces directly to it. And here's an example of a floor plan on the second floor that shows that distribution of space and the directionality of that light and of the stairs. All right. And this wall is like really huge. It's the main driver of the building, and everything around it is facing this wall. And it includes the buildings behind it with like Picadoo windows, primarily circulation on suspending staircases going all around it. It's a really, really activated space that it kind of encourages lots of interactions between people in that space, and then kind of pulls back with the distribution of light and more privacy on the surrounding areas. With the stacks being behind the wall, the windows are for the library stacks, so you can like walk through the stacks and you can like peek through it, and people can see you as they walk around. It's pretty cool. And this is the showing of the system itself. It is a self-sustaining aggregated system, so you won't have to have somebody water all the plants. It's something that it maintains itself without any use of electricity and all that fun stuff. And here's an example of the atrium is right when you walk in. There's like a suspending staircase that goes all around, and it's like the primarily public space, and also the cafe and public spaces on the bottom. So it encourages a lot of interactions on the bottom floor, and has like a space where there's a visual of everything around, and there's a lot of visibility from its front desk. And this is the study path as you're walking through those hallways, and all the study and meeting room spaces are on this other side with those glass doors. And you can like see the wall throughout the entire building. And this is the library stacks with a exposed structure on the outside, and it's all wood, and with all of the fun stuff, air conditioning and electricity on under that ceiling, so you won't be able to see it. And this might look familiar. This is the building, the site. This is where we are. And from what we found, Fifth Avenue seems to like bring in a lot of foot traffic. And I wanted to, as like a main entry of one entry point, have like really limited. I wanted to be able to bring a lot of people in from as much as possible from all three sides, which parking lot, Fifth Avenue with the foot traffic, and then the other side, Williams on the south side. It encourages people, it's an arcade that encourages people to walk through it and be able to just go and find their way into this certain point and funnel in. And here's a corner view of the cafe and of the colonnade, which has the chevron bracing that reflects on the inside, and you can see it on the outside as well through the glass. And here is that same view from, this is Library Lane. So you can just like have bike racks on the other side and just like walk through and just fun yourself and just encourage yourself to like walk under it and explore, whether you want to go into the library or not. Just a fun way to interact and having like that direct entry point. And yeah, this is what it looks like on the outside with the big open atrium on the outside with solar panels and with all the bracing being exposed, and you can see it on the outside, and lots of trees framing it as well. Since there's gonna be a big wall on the inside, might as well hint it with all this like bioswales outside. And it's on the same, pretty much the same on the other side with parking and the future park site that I think they're going to be building on Library Lane, across from Library Lane. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Summer, do I recall correctly, there's no concrete in this structure?
There is for the basement, but everything else is it. It's all a wood structure. Yes. Yeah. Except for the stairs. Stairs are steel, but everything else is wood. Yeah.
I want to know how the living wall is self-sustaining. How does that work?
So how it works is the living walls usually come in panels, and they're prefabricated. And within it has the entire layers of the system, which is a water irrigated system that pumps from a tank from the basement and goes through the walls up. And the water just misses the water. It distributes throughout the entire wall with like almost like baby sprinklers on the inside. And also based on how, here I can show you guys since I'm here. It's also sun sustaining with the sunlight. You don't have to add any additional LED lights to be able to keep this wall alive. And also the plants that are chosen can survive year round. So this is something that you can enjoy in winter as well as summer because of the tropical plants that are chosen. As long as they get 8 hours of sunlight a day and they follow all of the rules those baby rules that I have over here, it should be self-sustaining and you wouldn't have to maintain it every single day or week, and it's eco-friendly, doesn't take up a lot of electricity, and the water recycles itself, it doesn't have to change. Yeah, I think that sums it up.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Summer.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the trip down to see us.
I know, I'm excited, so yeah, thanks.
I really appreciate it.
Is Carson? Carson, are you out there?
Carson,
Yeah,
you out there?
I'm on Zoom here.
Okay. So do you want to take back control? There he is.
Yeah, I can take.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Carson, and this is my version of the Ann Arbor downtown branch. As you might notice right away, this building has a very unique cellular tube structure, and that kind of influenced a lot of the other design decisions that were made. It allows the space to have a very open floor scheme. Each floor is like just one big open space, basically, so that they can organize the stacks of the books and everything within the space however they'd like to. It just also allows like a really simple vertical organization. Everything is housed vertically inside of those tubes. So like the staircases and elevators and HVAC and everything that would need to run up and down through the building. And then this building also has a really strong connection to the surrounding context by having multiple entrances and like a really fluid site going into the building. Just to like get a reference of the building and how it was formed, it started with the location on the site. So the building was placed in the back of the site because a lot of the foot traffic and pedestrian people would be coming from the north and from Street Fifth Avenue. And then the building is shaped in an L shape because that works really well bioclimatically. You might not have heard that word before, but it's like how the building interacts with the sun and wind and everything. I sink the building down into the ground because I wanted to have both the ground floor and the floor below it to have like entrances into the building. And then the program of the building is pretty simple. Like your administration mechanical spaces are put at the top and bottom so that they're kind of out of the way. And then the two floors that people can enter on are very like eventful, active public floors. And then the 3 floors above that are for the library spaces. There's a lot of terracing happening on the building because there's green roofs on each face of the building. And it also helps with a lot of those climate sun angles and stuff. And then the structure I was talking about earlier are like these long tube structures that span up through the whole building. And then that caused me to rearrange the floors to like reduce the structural load on each tube. And it also allows like the direction of views in specific angles. And then, yeah, it's just enclosed with a zinc paneling system. Here's some 3D views of the whole exterior of the building. And that like red stuff that you see there is sedum, it's green roofs. And I did a lot of site work too, using like native plants to try and attract native animals as well. And then like if you were approaching the building from the south, this would be what you would see. There's a large fountain out front, because another thing I focused on heavily was water and the use of water within the building and the site. So you walk down this long ramp down into the event space below, or you can go into the ground level from the other side. And then if you're coming out of the event space, there's this large canopy that overhangs there. So like if it's raining, people have a nice access to the building where they won't get rained on. And then here's just the ground floor. So there's like large lobby cafe space, and then it's accepting people from like all three directions basically. And here's a rendering of that ground floor cafe space and reading space. And then the floors above that each house the library. The first floor above that is the kids and teen space. And then like above that is the adult library and administration spaces. So here's an example of what the kids space could look like. There'd probably be a lot more books than that. It just, it was hard to render all of them. And then just to get a sense of the verticality of the building, it's kind of in these layers of varying thicknesses, and then all of the vertical elements are housed within those tube structures. That's all I have.
I want to hear why you chose zinc for the exterior.
Because it actually handles weathering really well. And it's a lightweight material. That was another main issue that I had, like structurally, was the exterior walls needed to be a really lightweight material in order to reduce the load on the tube structures.
Very cool, thank you.
What are the tubes made out of?
They're actually just a steel space frame system.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just like steel linked with these little ball node things. And it can be whatever shape you want. I modeled them as Voronoi cells that Devin actually talked about earlier. It's like a natural cellular system that a lot of animals and plants and like cells make themselves into because it's sturdy.
Those tubes were giving me like very vivid flashbacks to my childhood. It's either the Philadelphia Zoo or the Franklin Institute has like similar things going on.
Yep.
So I was like, immediately like, oh yeah, nature. That's who builds
Yeah,
things.
it's biophilia.
Yeah.
I like really enjoy sort of like the aesthetics of the kind of undulating shape of the building, just as like a comment. And then I was like, I wonder what it's, you know, the sort of risk reward of kind of below grade entries and exits with that really like that fountain, which is really beautiful, but like also kind of conceals the front of the building.
Yeah.
And we have, just as a sort of case study, which you may know, like around the block, there's a kind of sunken park, which is kind of the bane of everybody's existence downtown, in the sense that like whatever happens there can't be seen at street level. So it's really hard to kind of regulate it as a public space. So it's just something that I would like think about in the way that, you know, the building gets kind of sited and brought below grade, and how you still create sort of sight line while also retaining some of that kind of creative feature that you've built in.
Yeah, that was something I kind of had to think about. And the solution I arrived at was just to have like a office space on each floor that can see the...
Can see down into it, yeah.
Yeah.
But then everybody goes home at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Nice job, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I actually have a question, just because we had two proposals now that had multiple entry points for the library. It's like an activating feature, and I thought about all of our branches, and I don't think any of our branches has more than a single entrance.
Westgate does.
Westgate has back, front and back.
Oh, that's right. How
Yeah.
could I forget? Okay.
Technically,
And Traverwood has three. Yeah,
Does it really?
But it's got the elevator and the stairs and the front door.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
But they
wondered,
all entry to the same place. Yeah.
I wondered if, yeah, if these plans were, if there was a reason for that, or if that would be something that could actually work, just from a library
I mean,
management
it's definitely
perspective.
possible to have that, I mean, it is an advantage of the current downtown library that has a single entry and exit place, but it certainly comes at a cost. And I think that it depends on what it enters and exits to. You know, if you have the staff position in the right place, you can so long as it can see those entrances, it can certainly work. And especially it can open up all kinds of site opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have. So I didn't discourage them too much when that came up.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Carson. Next up is Andre. There he is. How you doing, Andre?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Andre.
Looks muted.
Yeah.
There we go, sorry.
There you go.
Okay.
No worries.
All right, I'm doing good. How's everyone else doing?
Good.
Good.
How's the wee one?
He's doing really good. He's growing super fast.
Andre has a
For
new
those of you
baby.
who don't know, I have a 3-month-old who was born right before finals week, so.
Oh,
my gosh.
perfect timing.
Is there,
Should be slideshow at the top of the Google on the right-hand side. There you go. Slideshow.
oh, sorry. I'm not used to using Google Slides.
It's on the right-hand side of the screen.
Oh, I see, sorry, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so let me minimize this, there we go. So this was my proposal for the downtown library branch. We'll jump right into things. So the project was really driven by 3 focal points as far as the design goes. And the first one was wayfinding, so orienting the library in a way that creates an easy entry and exit location that people are used to in the area because the library has been around for a while. And then using furniture and structure on the inside to create a very easy wayfinding experience through the library so that nothing's confusing or hidden. And then the third point to that was designing floor plans that have unique elements on each floor, but also come back to the same circulation route throughout the whole building so that it's easy no matter what floor you're on. And then the second focus was daylighting. I really wanted to take advantage of the southern exposure to bring as much daylight as possible. I wanted to avoid direct daylight, so I wanted to bounce around that daylight. And then I wanted the daylight to also maximize the efficiency of the library. And then collaboration and reading space was the third focal point. And I really wanted to use a lot of unique spaces that were semi-private and private, and then collaborative spaces throughout the library and have various seating arrangements so everyone felt comfortable, similar to what Devin was talking about earlier with an introvert and extrovert. So then moving into wayfinding, so this is just the floor plan. I'm not going to read through everything, but the entry is on the top left, which was the northwest part of the building on the site. And then it was placed there mostly because of the existing parking lot, things like that. So it was very easy to get in and out of the building. And then circulation routes are shown in there as well. And a lot of, besides the administration space, a lot of the space has no walls. I wanted to do that intentionally, and you'll see in some of the renders why I wanted to avoid walls. So this is that front entry point from on the northwest corner. It's highlighted by the only concrete that's in the building is on that north side, and then everything else is glass. And then, so those people walking on the right would be walking down the sidewalk on South 5th, and then the gentleman on the left would be on Library Lane. And then looking at the inside, this would be looking at, this is a second floor sitting area, but what I really wanted to do by eliminating walls was create vision lines and sight lines through the whole library so that getting from one place to another was easy and you could see where you're going. So what I did was, instead of having walls, I used furniture to imply a visual barrier as well as structure. So to the right of where that column is highlighted would be the corridor through that main space. And then that carried over into the seating areas quite heavily. So instead of putting up walls, the seating arrangements were set up in a way to where the circulation routes kind of followed the backs of the seating, and then wherever the structure went, instead of blocking people's vision with walls. So then jumping into daylighting here, a lot of the light, like I said, I wanted to bring in would be non-direct and bounced around with light shelves and louvers and things like that. So there's vertical and horizontal louvers. The vertical is on the east and west side, and that would be to block a lot of that east and west light. And then on the south side, there's horizontal to bounce that light back up as much as possible. So then going down into here, this is the whole building used a double skin facade, which is essentially 2 layers of exterior wall. They're both glass, but what that allowed is it helps with the efficiency of the library quite a bit as far as heating and cooling goes, but it also created a space where I could put window louvers that didn't protrude into the interior space. So on the right is vertical louvers, and then those help bounce around light as much as possible through the library. And then this is just an exterior view of that south side. So what you're seeing is some structure, but on the inside, sandwiched between those 2 exterior facade layers is those horizontal window louvers, redirecting the light back up. And then looking into collaboration and reading spaces, I really wanted to create spaces that, like I said, were separated by walls, but also felt private in a way. I know when I like to read, I can't read around a lot of people. I get very distracted very quickly. So I can't be in a big space, and I figured that might be very helpful for a lot of other people as well. So you'll see in some of these renders, this is what I called one of the semi-private areas, and then there's planners that separate, people on the benches. A similar term that you've probably been hearing today is biophilia. That was a major driving point too, as far as pushing well-being and privacy in the space. So then moving into this, and this was in the, sorry, I don't have floor plans to show where this was, but this was on the 2nd floor, which would have been the adult reading space, or on the 3rd floor, the adult reading space. So this was another semi-private area where light was able to travel through the space because of the glass separation walls, but the glass gave a little bit of privacy because it was frosted so that it didn't feel so open and connected to everybody else. You could kind of get away, store your books on the shelves on the right side, things like that. And then this is just the final render that shows the double skin facade. And then on the left side, that would be East William Street. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I have a question. This was really great, thank you. So as a Michigander, I loved how much light there was in the space and the brightness of it. But as someone with migraine and photosensitivity, I was also wincing sometimes. And I'm curious if there are sections of the building that are dimmer, like less of that brightness.
There are. I can share my screen really quick. Yeah. And jump back up to a floor plan. Now, this is at the base floor, but the floor, I can maybe share again on the slideshow so it gets a little bit, there we go. So on the top of the floor plan, I probably should have explained this a little bit. That thick black line is that concrete wall that's on that north side. That continues all the way up, and then the administration space goes away on those higher floors, and then towards the back of the building gets a little bit dimmer and a little bit more private. So that would be, like you were saying, a little bit less bright and a little bit easier on the eyes back there.
Thank you.
So my comment is a little bit similar. When I saw the glass box, I was like, "Oh no, a glass box! it's gonna be really hot in there." But then you went and I saw all the different ways you put the louvers in to kind of manage the solar gain, which I think is smart and something you don't see in enough American buildings in particular. But I'm wondering how does that get managed, right? Because if you have these devices that can be adjusted to control how much light is coming in, is that something that has to be actively kind of adjusted by staff? Or is that something that can be automated? And then what are the systems like to do that?
So these double skin facades are operated by the HVAC system. So
Okay.
what's not shown here, because the model would have been very difficult, but there would be HVAC lines running along the ceiling. And then that manages the airflow within this double skin facade and things like that. So it isn't a very high maintenance design, but yeah.
And what's the structural framing of the building other than the concrete wall?
The structural framing, the concrete wall is mostly aesthetic, actually.
Yeah.
So the structural framing for the entire building is glulam and laminated floors.
Okay, so another mass timber. I love the mass timber buildings. I hope we could build one if we ever build a building here, but it's hard to get that material here right now, unfortunately.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Nice job.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Andre. Give the baby a snuggle for me. Eli, how are you?
I'm Eli.
Okay.
Share my screen.
Okay. Eli Forta is the last one of our group tonight, and once his screen shows, there it is. So he'll walk you through his proposal as well. Take it away, Eli.
All right, thank you. So the major points I want to talk about today are the building-site relationship, how those interact, programmatic layout, why individual elements of the program were put where, and the patron experience, what do you experience as someone visiting the library? So to quickly explain the massing, which was really important as far as how the building related to the site, the big thermal and green driver for the building was a trome wall, which is essentially a system that incorporates a thermal mass and a nice glazing to capture heat during the day. The thermal mass stores that and then it releases it at night in the colder hours. And this has a huge benefit in offsetting the cost of running HVAC. That's pretty typical, not in the US, in places that have more passive design. But then to take it a step farther, the trome wall space actually became an atrium. So patrons can actually come into the atrium and experience like the solar gains, the greenness, and I have some renderings of that later. Looking at the next big move was an interior courtyard. This was for circulation and also for a mass separation. So the idea was to separate the north mass with the stacks from the south mass. And that was primarily an HVAC and energy response. So the stacks would require a higher degree of control with the storage or requirements of books, versus the south mass can be more controlled by that thermal gain and that trome wall and allow for less reliance on traditional HVAC. And then the western portion was raised, as you can see in that third little diagram, and that allows airflow in. That is, I don't have the images here because we don't need them. But this is where the most wind concentrates in aggregate over the year. So that would blow into the courtyard, bring fresh air up, and there were operable windows into the courtyard to allow that into the building. And then finally, to allow for greater access, a lot of us identified that northwestern corner of the site, kind of where Fifth Avenue comes down, as a major approach point, partially because of the parking, partially because of its connection to Ann Arbor proper. So that corner becomes raised as a flexible courtyard, and this is achieved through giant operable facades that kind of move up. And again, I will show that in a second. So that way, this place could be used as an event space. It could be a hall. It could be anything it needs to be. Or if it's not in use, it could just open up and become seating. And so here's, if you were approaching from the west, you can see that green build out houses these doors. You can see some of them poking down. They would close entirely. So in the winter, it would be a proper wall, properly thermally rated, and it wouldn't be freezing in there. Starting to look at programmatic layout, one main driving factor of how I placed elements in this building was that the library actually inhabits the second floor and up. And there's kind of a separation. The reason for that was I had chosen a music performance space, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but I wanted that to be able to function as well as the event space and the cafe outside of library hours. So the idea here is that the library can be closed, but the bottom floor and the basement of the building can still operate at any time of day or night as needed without the library having to be open. This also again, with this discussion of how many points of entry do we have into the library as far as safety is concerned. So the points of entry are in these cores. There's one here, and one here, a stairwell and an elevator. And those three are the ways to get up, and those three can be closed off. So if the library closes, you know, access to the library is closed, but these spaces on the ground floor and in the basement here are still accessible. The basement is primarily a music hall, and we have a section to show how that sound is mitigated. But two main entries, the vestibule up here would bring you down, and then into the reception or through the back through this lowered courtyard, again, where the air was coming in and up. And then looking at this in section, one final programmatic layout decision was that I had a noise or a sound generating part of my program, which for a library felt very irregular. Libraries are typically quieter. So that got put in the basement as a means of sound mitigation, and then became the main entry, the children's stacks, the teens, and then the adult stacks in the quiet room. So the amount of sound being produced by these entities inhabiting these spaces lessens as you get higher up, so that you can achieve that quiet that you need. And then just a few shots looking at patron experience. This is the exterior. Looking at that green atrium, there's another shot inside, but this is designed to get thermal gains. It would get warm, and then it would heat up the rest of the building. It might not always be pleasant to inhabit, but particularly during the winter, but also during the summer when it wasn't midday, it would be a nice space to be in. The adult stacks. So this is on the top floor. This is where the books are stored. All the lighting is from the northern facade. So you can see this render was taken at July 15th in the evening. There are very few times of year, except when the sun's out really long, that you'd get any direct light back here, but you get a lot of diffused light to help people see the books. The music hall, like we saw in that render, those shapes that are mounted to the ceiling to help, cast the noise down to the far spaces to make it a proper and well-performing music space. And finally, inside that green atrium, you could see the heavy, dark mass that is the trome wall designed to capture heat and release it slowly overnight, and then the green space and how it will be inhabited. And yeah, that's all for me.
I noticed that you had moving chairs in the music hall. Did you see that as a multi-purpose space?
Yeah, so my original iteration for the music hall had it as 2 stories on the ground with fixed seating, like a proper theater. Part of the programmatic requirement that we were given, and actually I think it was a positive one, was that that's multi-purpose. So there's sufficient storage for all those chairs to be put away. The stage is demountable, and then those ceiling elements that bounce the sound are high enough in the air that anything you'd be using the room for, a celebration, event, a mixer, whatever it is, they wouldn't interfere in any way. So the whole place can turn into a multi-purpose room.
What's the seating capacity or sitting, standing, what's the capacity of that room?
Yeah, I'd have to pull up my exact numbers from my presentation. I think it's around 250 seating. And for code reasons, I cut down the amount of people allowed in there, but assuming there's sufficient egress, which without cutting down, it's close, you can get like 2,000 people in a standing room.
Because you took on a music venue, and I've spent many years of my career in the performing arts, I'm sort of like curious about how you thought about, lighting elements in the space, having fly space, maybe not building the venue out to be 2 levels, but building the sort of stage area to be able to, contain a more sophisticated theatrical setup if you wanted one there, because I think a space that's purely for, a couple of people, like a chamber music setting basically, or a band is pretty like inflexible in certain ways, but just something to think about in the sense of like what a room like that in a building program needs to be able to do.
Sure, yeah, it wasn't designed for that level of sophistication. It would take, as you said, a much larger space with much more overhead.
Yeah.
The lighting was considered, and actually I don't have an image of this, but I will reshare, we cut these down for practicality. But in this plan, right along here, there are curtains that close for the music performance, and that was for acoustical reasons. So there wasn't like a cross of music that would make it sound unpleasant. And then also, if you look at it down here in section, the lighting would be above, and then it would shine along the curve. So you kind of see it up here. It casts its way along each of these curves and comes into space. As far as fly space or a more sophisticated setup would go, it wouldn't be possible in this current design. The room would have to get dug much deeper underground.
Thanks for taking that challenge on, though. It's really fun to see it played out in our space.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Eli.
And thank you to all of you for coming today. We appreciate your time and all your creativity. And any other comments from the board?
That was wonderful. It's like great to live in imaginary and creative space about like what could occupy this site. And y'all did some really like cool, creative, thoughtful work. We really appreciate it. And I have to say, you know, lest anyone casually stumble upon this video online, it's all speculative. But we like living in the land of speculation sometimes. Thank you for showing us what's possible.
Yeah, that was really wonderful to see all those ideas. I loved the plant elements that so many people brought in, and it was just really, that was fascinating to see such creative ideas.
If this is the way the next generation of architects are thinking, then we're in good hands, I think.
Thank you for taking us on as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really meaningful to us, as much as we are, not in the middle of anything. Like, we're always thinking about the future, and it's cool that you did something based on a real place that, that maybe you could see your designs, in real life someday. So thank you for taking your time.
And thank you for your time, both on the reviews and also with touring the building, because I think that was most beneficial to the students, understanding some of the complexities of like day in and day out of everyday library. And then I just think they ended up finding a lot of the previous proposals that were much larger, much bigger, kind of taking on a kind of wild mix of things. And so we kind of scaled it back just for time purposes. But I think for Martin and I especially, like the truly public spaces are something that you don't often get to work with in practice. And so making sure that the students are thinking about these spaces in really dynamic ways from the get-go. So thank you all as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks a lot.
And Sherlanya will help you find your way out of the building because it's closed.
Speaking of buildings.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Summer. Thanks, Kalina.
That is so fun. All right, moving on to the rest of our agenda here. We have a resolution of thanks to Arnold Frantz upon his retirement. Is there anyone who would like to read this resolution?
I love to read these.
Yes, thank you, Jamie.
Okay. The board resolves that it would like to officially thank Arnold Frantz upon his retirement for his service as an employee from February 22, 2018 to June 25, 2022 of the Ann Arbor District Library. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Cheers.
Cheers to Arnold.
Can I say a few things?
Yes, please do, Eli.
So nobody on staff knows who Arnold is, but everybody knows who Arnie is. And Arnie worked on the maintenance team, and he built a lot of things for the library. And a lot of the things that he built while he worked here will be in use at the library for a long time. We have these wonderful display boards that are down in the lobby that he built. He built all of those carts that we used during when we were closed for COVID. He built our forts that were, around the doors during the time that we were in vestibule mode. So Arnie built a lot of great things for us, and Arnie also was a musician, and Arnie and I connected because we were both in the Michigan Marching Band together.
Oh, amazing.
Not at the same time, separated by several years. But Arnie and I had a lot of stories to share about the Michigan Marching Band, and he's a great guy. Everybody liked working with him, and we wish Arnie the best in his retirement.
Thank you, Eli.
Thank you, that's great to know.
Thanks so much. All right, all in favor of this resolution, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Well, the resolution passes, and we wish Arnie a happy retirement. Thank you. I would like to call for a motion for a closed session on September 8th in lieu of the regular August board meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Dharma. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Any discussion?
I'd just like to add, this cancels the August meeting that was regularly scheduled. This is in lieu of that. So there will be a closed session only on September 8th.
And I should have made clear that is a closed session for discussion of real estate and labor negotiations.
And then there will still be the regularly scheduled September meeting on September 27th.
I do have a question about summer game people. Does this impact their ability
No,
to?
because we had already advertised that this is really only June and July, because
Okay.
it's often the case that there's not an August.
And that has happened before, yeah.
And if we have any stragglers, we will read them at the September meeting.
Okay, very good.
Any other discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passes. All right, thank you. And that moves us on to item D, which is vote for closed session at the September 27th, 2022 regular board meeting for discussion of real estate and labor negotiations. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Dharma. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. Have we any more citizens' comments?
We've received some online, and they will be in the packet for the next meeting.
Terrific. Thank you, Eli. It is the cheese stands alone. We have no more audience here except folks online. Thanks, everyone. We will see each other again at the beginning of September. I hope that you all enjoy the rest of this just completely glorious summer, because the sun doesn't look like it looks in those renderings during the wintertime in Michigan. But I like the fantasy of it. Thanks for your work, and we'll see you in September. Meeting adjourned.